All right, let's get into the episode proper. Joining me this week for this week's feature review is one of the OG co-hosts of the Obsessive Viewer and one piece of the two-man band who created the theme song for this podcast, As Good As It Gets. Welcome back to the show, Mike White. How is it going, buddy?
Yes. It's going well.
Nice, nice. How you been? We can kind of do the preamble thing here.
Yeah, good. Watching movies. You know, what's funny? So the movie that we're about to review, Abigail, kind of quietly just so happened to be the 600th movie at movie night.
Oh, nice.
The other night this week, yeah, and very little fanfare. Like we barely even remembered that it was
that,
and just kind of moved on.
That's so interesting because for new listeners and old listeners alike, Mike and his friend Jake do movie night every Thursday.
Yep.
And so let me ask you this. So I know that the plan, I don't know. I know you had plans in place for 500, but that overlapped with the pandemic, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately we did a 500, and it was Spider-Man No Way Home, and that was
That's
great.
Right.
Yeah.
Nice.
But we don't do, like I said, we kind of I knew that 600 was coming up, and it just kind of came and went. You get to a certain, once I think you pass 500, that becomes your new baseline for anniversaries. We'll get excited when we hit 1,000.
Yep.
Now it's more about, the anniversary. We'll talk in August. We'll go, hey, we've been doing this for 14 years or whatever.
Nice. Yeah. With the podcast, we got 75 more episodes before we get to 500.
That's awesome.
So yeah.
Very cool.
Yep. And since I've been doing weekly episodes, that's going to come a lot quicker than expected. So that's exciting.
Awesome.
Yeah. And speaking of movie theaters and stuff, something before we get into the review, by the way, we're going to do a feature review, obviously, of Abigail in a non-spoiler and spoiler review. We are live streaming this. So join Patreon. Even if you join Patreon as a free member, you can get notified when we go live with these live streams and everything. And also just subscribe to the YouTube channel. What I've been doing is I've been making video versions of the reviews and posting them. So this review will be posted next Tuesday or next Monday. I'm sorry. Next Monday. So the primary or the feature review goes up on Monday. The secondary review goes up on Wednesday. And then, but anyway, to get into our review, I want to talk a little bit about the box office. I don't have the stats in front of me or anything, but it was neck and neck. We're not like a box office prognostication show or anything like that.
Right. As obsessive as we can be, box office is not really our thing.
Exactly. So we don't really do this or anything, but I found it interesting that Abigail was the new release, big ticket new release. And it's just got number 2. It was neck and neck with Civil War. Civil War took the top at the box office, domestic box office. And Abigail was second. And I saw a headline somewhere. I'll dig it up and put it in the show notes of the episode when this goes up on Thursday. But there was a headline saying that is this horror movie fatigue? Is this because Abigail is the type of horror movie that would absolutely destroy in April, pre-summer blockbuster season.
Oh wow. Okay.
But there has been just such a wealth of high profile mainstream big release horror movies. Is it a fatigue issue or is Civil War just that good and in high demand? What's your take on it, Mike?
I'm formulating it right now, to be honest with you. So you did, or is Civil War that much better? I think you have to take Civil War out of the equation. I'm less concerned that Abigail was number 2 than when you talk about there being a horror fatigue. That it looks like 10 million was the weekend for Abigail, 10.3, compared to Civil War's 11 million. And you referenced a early or a mid-spring kind of a summer kickoff type of horror movie like Abigail usually goes off, like comparable to what?
I don't know what examples. I don't have any examples. Like the article just said that it's the type of release. So I don't know if it actually had like any examples. It could have just
Yeah,
been talking out
okay,
of its ass.
interesting. I'd be curious to see because like I said, or like we said, box office is not generally a thing that we cover. So is
Right.
10 million a disappointment?
I I don't know, because here's the thing, like with I don't know if we should compare it to like Scream or Scream 6, like,
Right. Which
other
is easy
Radio
to
Silence
do because it's
movies.
radio silence.
Yeah, but
The
those are
the director and production
franchises.
team. Yeah, that doesn't count.
Yeah.
Um Gosh, I'm trying to think. I should be more prepared
Well, I
about
kinda
when
just
these
threw this at you.
yeah, I know. That's an interesting topic though. Is there a
Yeah.
fatigue? Everything like that is cyclical. We've been talking about a comic book movie fatigue
Mhm.
for 2, 3 plus years. Um is it happening to horror? We have still, you and I, and then my
Mhm.
friend Jake, who I do movie night with, we've kind of talked about just how fortunate we are to live in a time where there are so many horror movies. In fact, 7 of my current top 10 movies of the year so far are horror movies because it's just like
Nice.
every week there's a new one coming out. So
Mhm.
is there fatigue? Um, oh, almost certainly, right?
Yeah, I would say,
Probably.
is there mainstream fatigue? Like, for the people like, John Q. moviegoer
Totally.
who
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
isn't, like, seeking out horror,
Right. Well,
because
that's
it's
what I'm talking
interesting
about.
because
I am not
yeah.
fatigued. My
Mhm,
friend Jake is not fatigued
mhm.
either. Um, but yeah, is the mainstream audience? I think so. I don't think that they were, my gauge is always, so anybody who doesn't know, I teach high school, I teach
Mhm.
sophomores, 15, 16-year-olds, and they're kind of a good gauge of what the general audience is at the movies. And they're
Sure.
not interested in Civil War either. Okay, so
Mm.
Evil Dead Rise last year was an April
Oh,
release
okay.
and it made 23.5 million at the box office.
Like,
So
cumulative or opening
no,
weekend?
opening weekend,
Okay,
sorry.
okay.
Opening
Oh, you're
weekend.
good.
Yeah.
Um,
And gosh, 10 million. Forgive me here. I am working through these thoughts or this argument.
yeah,
I
well,
think there's go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna say 10 million. It's interesting because it had a B cinema score, which is, according to IndieWire, it's a good for like a horror movie. It's surprisingly good for a horror movie.
Yeah.
But it's usually not a great indicator of like reaction, because people who are going to the movie theater and like are the ones who are rating it are like they're going to see that movie specifically.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to note that like the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare or Warfare was out this weekend too, and that got, I think, fourth place behind Godzilla X Kong. So kind of interesting.
So this is comparable. Renfield, which came out about a year
Mhm.
ago at this time, an April release by Universal Pictures, a vampire movie.
Mhm.
It also bombed.
Oh yeah.
That it was 8 million. So I would hate to, and because I liked Abigail.
Yeah.
People on the internet love to be the first to like declare something dead.
Yeah.
So whoever wrote that article is probably excited to be the first one to say, see, I told you,
Yeah.
I told you there's horror
The
fatigue.
the
Uh,
headline in this IndieWire article is literally "Horror Overkill Dooms Abigail as Civil
yeah,
War ekes out narrow second
right.
weekend."
Come on.
Yeah, I think that
Settle
is,
down, settle
yeah,
down. Um,
especially when you consider that this is, I mean, this is as subjective as it gets, but like this is comparatively, compared to other horror releases this year, this is higher tier level horror. This is like more
yeah.
of the good stuff.
More prestige than something else. And I don't think to the average audiences it does. I think they're lumping it in with other PG-13 fare. I think we come in knowing that it's radio silence, knowing it's a little more elevated, and not to throw my bestest buddy in the whole world under the bus, Jake. If you listen to this, Jake, I love you. Shout out to you. But we disagreed on the trailer of this. He would be like, "Oh, I'm not looking forward to that," and I'd be like, "What?" Like I was surprised. Usually, we're pretty lock in step with what we're excited about, and he was like not excited to see this movie, and I was like, "It's radio silence, and it looks awesome." What do you? I was surprised. Luckily, he liked it. Spoiler alert: I liked it too.
Nice.
But I think I don't know what it was about the trailer. I think that there is also vampire movie fatigue.
Oh yeah.
I think Renfield and Last Voyage of the Demeter last year. I think that there's a universal monster vampire fatigue thing also going on. That's kind of been going on for a while now.
That makes sense, especially when they can't really get it off the ground. And when they can get it off the ground, it's like with The Invisible Man, which happened during the beginning of the pandemic. And I'm sure that kind of put the kibosh on a lot of plans.
And finally, I also think a lot of people saw this as trying to capitalize on the popularity of Megan.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I can see that. Yes. Oh
my God, I don't agree. I don't think it's anything like Megan. Respect to anybody who liked that movie, but I thought that movie was garbage. And
you didn't like Megan?
No, I really disliked Megan.
Interesting. I thought it was fun. For what it was.
Yeah. Do we agree that this movie's on a different level than Megan?
Whoa, 110%.
Okay. All right.
We can get into the actual review.
Let's review Abigail.
Let's do it. And to bring us into this review, of course, we're going to do a non-spoiler and then spoiler review. I'll play a clip from the trailer to transition us over to the spoiler section. Once we do that, or you can check the show notes of the episode. The show notes are available at obsessiveviewer.com/OV425 once this goes live on Thursday. And that's where you can find timestamps and show notes and links and everything. But let's go into the review. The premise, according to IMDb, is after a group of criminals kidnap the ballerina daughter of a powerful underworld figure, they retreat to an isolated mansion, unaware that they're locked inside with no normal little girl. Directors for this movie were Matt Bettinelli-Olpin and Tyler Gillett, two of the three who make up the collective Radio Silence. Writers were Stephen Shields and Guy Busick, and the cast includes Melissa Barrera, Dan Stevens, Alisha Weir, Will Catlett, Kathryn Newton, Kevin Durand, Angus Cloud, and Giancarlo Esposito.
Esposito, yep.
Yes. Which I paused there because I realized for years I don't think I've ever said his name out loud, and I've always pronounced it in my brain Giancarlo, but it's Giancarlo. I looked it up. So yeah. So in non-spoiler terms, Michael, what did you think of Abigail, and how does it stack up with the rest of Radio Silence's filmography?
Oh, that's difficult to do because I'm gonna maybe unfairly remove Scream from that conversation.
Sure.
Scream comes with so much other baggage that I mean, by all means, their fingerprints are all over that movie and all two movies. And you and I both are on record that we loved those movies. But I think our love for them has more to do with our love for Scream than it does as good as their contribution. So the comparison is Ready or Not, right?
Oh yeah. Which this has a lot of that Ready or Not DNA
very much so. In fact, it's kind of a cool inverted version of Ready or Not. Whereas in Ready or Not, it was one survivor, Samara Weaving, the bride, against many, kind of closing in on her. Whereas in this one, it was many where the girl in this case as well is kind of attacking them. I don't know how intentional that inversion is, but to compare the two is pretty fun. Locked in a dusty old mansion. I thought that was cool. Going into the movie, how much better, or when they were conceiving of the movie and making the movie and before the trailer was cut, how much of it do you think Abigail being a vampire was supposed to be a surprise to us as well? And that's not a spoiler because that's just the trailer. That's just the plot of the movie. Abigail is a vampire. It's in the poster.
A ballerina vampire.
So there's a good 20 minutes of the movie where part of the suspense is like, what's going on? And we're all like, it's her.
I want to say it's maybe like 45 minutes. Or maybe like 35 to 40
I was being
minutes.
generous, but it's no less than 30.
Yeah, it was to the point where I was wondering that myself. Like how much would it have been effective, or would it have been gimmicky to have like it concealed in the trailer and be something that would be just revealed in the theater, like when we see it.
Because you can show them being attacked, right?
Yeah.
You can show killings and moments and
like build a mystery around what is happening, which is what the movie does in the first act, really.
It does.
But I don't know. I'm so glad, surprisingly so. I'm glad that it didn't go that route. It wasn't that, because I feel like if it had been marketed that way as a mystery, I would have been in like slasher movie mode. I would have been in like a whodunit mode or what's going on mode. And knowing that it's building toward a vampire plot, and knowing that while the movie is played so straight, it's played so straight and so earnestly with its like caper plot.
Right.
Like I could just really get into it. And that also heightened a lot of the comedy surrounding like the characters being like, the line from the trailer, like we kidnapped a vampire, a ballerina vampire. Like, it's ridiculous.
How
in the
ridiculous
way that
is that scenario? Yes.
Yeah. It's really effective.
You don't get that a lot in movies, I think, where it's kind of a Scream-esque kind of thing that they realize like the genre of movie that they're in, right? Like, how would a person act if they saw a vampire? Are you kidding me? I kind of like their reaction. So for me, there's kind of two things really to talk about, or at least that kind of like highlight my experience. There's the ensemble, and we can talk about that first, and then there's how if you're going into a vampire movie, how does it play with the lore, and how does it play by the rules? I'm super interested in that. We might tiptoe a little bit because we'll talk a little bit more in spoilers, but let's talk a little bit about the ensemble. What were some of your favorite performances and moments of the cast?
Oh my God. Okay. So the cast over this ensemble is fantastic.
Yeah, I agree.
I love them. Melissa Barrera, I think she's a phenomenal like lead for the ensemble in this movie.
Yep.
Dan Stevens,
all of the criticism against her in Scream 1, I think she's put that to bed.
Oh, 100%. I kind of completely forgot that there was a lot of criticism about her.
Yeah.
In Scream 1. Like that's a good point. I think she between like and I feel like I understand some of those criticisms from Scream, but like between Scream and then Scream 6 and then now this, like she's grown a lot. Like it's been a really great run for her for these 3 movies. And I'm excited to see what she does next, if she stays in like this final girl level like thing or what have you, but I'm excited to see her in more things. And I'm aware that she's been in other things other than Radio Silence movies, obviously, but I do want to mention freaking Dan Stevens, man. Like,
yeah, he's excellent. He's so excellent.
God. Yeah, he's him this year, like between this and Godzilla X Kong, like he's having such a field day with these roles. Like he's playing like
that's
these
awesome.
heightened, like weird, sleazy people in some cases. But like in here, I saw a headline. I didn't really read too much into it, but they talked about how his makeup design and his hair styling and everything was patterned or inspired by an I Think You Should Leave sketch. Which, have you watched I Think You Should Leave?
Oh yes.
Oh my god,
I Think You Should Leave.
Oh my god, I'm so glad that you said that, because I didn't want to go into like hardcore pitch mode, because
I love
it's one of my favorite comedy anything.
One of the few rare shows that I've watched.
Oh my god, it's so good. And as an aside, I am like heartbroken that, because they went on like tour with I Think You Should Leave, and I'm heartbroken that they didn't come to Indy, because I would have 100% gone. But but anyway, they patterned his look after, apparently it's after the sloppy steak. The sloppy steaks sketch, the slick back hair, like just looking like a douchebag.
That's awesome.
I was a piece of shit though.
Yeah. That's so great.
But not anymore. I said was.
I was.
Yeah. Oh my god.
By the way, listeners and viewers, welcome to the I Think You Should Leave podcast. We're excited for you to be here.
Yes.
But no, I kind of quote very often, maybe too often. I don't really want to be around anymore.
Yes. Oh my god. When that season aired, and then season 2 was posted, I was at work. And I was in the office at work, and like that day, like I went to, like, not to be crass, but I went to the bathroom, and while I was in the bathroom, I was like, I could watch the first couple of sketches on my phone. And the that one is like the second sketch of the season, and it was so, like to be a fly on that wall in the bathroom, like I was I was in tears laughing, because it's brilliant.
That's awesome. Yeah.
It's absolutely brilliant. But anyway, all that's to say, Dan Stevens is great in this.
He's great. Kevin Durand is kind of like the consummate that guy, right?
My god, yeah.
Who's that? What's he in? To me, he's like the MVP of the movie. He's kind of doing a bit of like a oh my gosh, his name is escaping me. Drax from Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah,
I talk about him totally so much. And I love him. Why can't I?
Oh my god.
This is horrible.
Dave Bautista.
Yeah.
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
He is kind of doing a Bautista thing, and like as a lovable Hulkish type of figure,
kind of a gentle giant.
You kind of
somewhat against type, sort of.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I love him in that. How do you feel about like heavy exposition scenes? Jake and I, when we're watching movies, we kind of have this joke where when they're like dropping exposition, and it's one of those things where it's kind of like you wish you never noticed it in the first place, because now you notice it every time it's in a movie. But there's the scene, if you don't know what I'm talking about, listeners, it like they're standing around the pool table, and they do this gimmick where Melissa Barrera's character, named Joey, they're all named after the Rat Pack, can like predict where they're all really from and their characteristics. And it was one moment of the movie where I felt where Radio Silence was being a little formulaic.
It's interesting. I didn't find it too formulaic. I do find it interesting that in the last 2 weeks, like that's something in terms of screenwriting that I praised to no end in Civil War. Have you seen Civil War yet?
I haven't yet. No.
Okay. It's really good. Tomorrow. But anyway, the way that the exposition is delivered in that movie is very organic and very just like it's lived in. It's like it's lived in that setting. Here, I didn't mind it too much, because it is very much a checklist scene. It is a scene where it's like, okay, well, let's like it could have been done worse. I will say that, and I didn't mind the way it was done.
Yeah.
When we go into spoilers, I'll kind of expand on how it could have been done so much worse. But I do think that it's a pretty organic way to do it in a structured screenplay sort of cage, basically.
Yeah.
So I didn't mind it. To go back to Kevin Durand real quick, just to give a quick shout out to him. Like, yes, he is a that guy actor, but the thing that I know him from the most, that I have just this won't surprise you that I'm gonna speak highly of him in this, but it's his appearance on Lost in, I think, season 4. My God, like he plays that like kind of sociopathic, like heavy guy, like hitman, kind of contract killer, military guy. So what I really appreciate about his performance here is that he is obviously built that way, and he is showcased that way. He's introduced that way, but there's just such a lovable chemistry between him and Kathryn Newton. Like this friendship that forms between them is just so like sweet, and it's kind of nice. Which also Kathryn Newton, talking about horror comedy, even like Lisa Frankenstein and this, like and obviously she's like she's been in tons of stuff. Yeah, I really love this ensemble, man.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
And then so opposite the ensemble is Alisha Weir as the titular Abigail, who kind of has two things to do in the movie. For the first 30-ish minutes, she's just kind of this young, innocent, kidnapped little girl.
Yep. How did you feel about her performance there, especially in that beginning part? Because it is clearly like setting up toward the vampire reveal and everything. So she's playing it very sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. How'd you feel about that performance in the first act?
She's really good. It feels like setup. Those are the scenes I wondered most. Like, her performances are the ones I wondered most, where when they wrote the script and maybe even filmed those scenes, were they thinking that this is going to be a twist, a second act twist? I think ultimately not. I mean, most of the movie, she's a vampire. It's all over the posters. You just know that she is. So I do think the actress Alisha Weir is kind of giving this like underneath, like behind the eyes, sinister attitude toward it. I thought she was really good.
Oh yeah, she was great. I thought she did a really good job, and I don't think it's interesting because I don't really think that it was filmed with that kind of second act twist in mind. I don't think that the first act was really written for a twist change up, and by that,
right,
I mean because specifically like her first scene with Joey, like the first thing she says is she's asking personal questions. She's acting very like scared and everything, and that that's something that I didn't connect like with vampire lore. I didn't connect the whole glamour thing, the whole like mind control sort of power that they have. I didn't connect that until it was referenced like later in the movie. And I was just like, damn, that's some pretty solid just like groundwork for that, because it's not too on the nose. It's not too much like, yeah, she's it's more like she's getting into their minds in a way that would be
it's seductive, and I don't mean for that to sound gross,
right?
But they're definitely like, at least Joey wants to be a caretaker.
Like I didn't with the first scene with her and Joey where she asks her name and then asks her son's name and asks if she has a son and everything. Like I did not, I know going into the movie knowing that it's a vampire movie, I did not connect that with vampire stuff. I connected that with young girl is being held captive by a group of people. She wants to humanize herself. She wants to forge a connection, and like even to the point where she is guessing her son's name.
So stick a pin in this for spoilers. But
Yes.
I had thoughts during this scene that we'll save. So Act 2 begins, and it kind of goes, I was gonna say off the rails, but that's not true. Because that has a negative connotation. Just all hell breaks loose.
Yeah.
Right. She is out of the cage, and people start dying. What do you think of the gore effects?
Oh my God. Like, it's so, this is kind of interesting. And this is going to be an interesting kind of thought exercise, but had this movie been made 2 years ago, 3 years ago, even, like, this could have been I could see them making this movie during like when shit was hitting the fan with the pandemic, and because it's an enclosed space, an ensemble, but I don't know that they would have been able to get as visceral as they did with the gore in those confines, in those with those restrictions.
Yeah.
The level of horror and that kind of, I don't know if I would even call it like a signature radio silence bloodbath sort of thing, but like just the way that blood is utilized in this is gross and awesome, and it's so much fun.
It is.
It's obviously like they know what they're doing with horror. They know they're at this point they're very, very well versed at that. But what I love about this is that the common kind of criticism for modern horror or horror in general is like, oh, there's too many jump scares. Like they made me jump scare, and I didn't think that. I thought that was cheap.
How cheap is a jump scare? Yeah.
What I love is that the jump scares in this is just gore. It's just gore stuff, and like I
think we said whoa a couple times. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, they definitely have a signature move in their two kind of like original movies, their original ideas. And it's kind of an allusion almost to Ready or Not in some of the things. I think we're talking about the same things, but they're so great. They're so great.
Oh yeah. It's, oh my God. It's so good. It's so much fun. Do we want to do, I was just going to say, do we want to do kind of final thoughts on maybe the third act, the movie as a whole, and our recommendations, and then kind of go spoilery? Absolutely. Because there's some stuff I want to talk about in the spoilers for sure. So I can just kind of give an overall thing. And I don't know, I don't know the ins and outs of the writing of this movie, because it is written by Stephen Shields and Guy Busick. Guy Busick is one half of the writing team that did Scream and Scream 6.
Correct.
The other guy is James Vanderbilt, I think.
Yes.
Did they also do Ready or Not together? Do you know?
I believe that they did. Yes, they did.
Okay. So it's interesting that like one of them is the credited writer for Scream 7.
Vanderbilt is still on Scream 7.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah,
that's interesting to me too. That's for another podcast, but
100%. Yeah.
But then they when you have like rewrites and stuff happen, they like the credited writers for a thing can be so kind of crazy, and I'm 100%. Sure Scream 7 it will be based on a script by James Vanderbilt or whatever, it'll be.
Yeah, the actual credits for Scream 7 are James Vanderbilt's story by credit and Guy Busick written by credit.
Okay.
So,
Gotcha.
So that's interesting. But anyway, all that's to say that these two guys are like a writing team in their own right. And I wonder, James Vanderbilt is a credited producer on Abigail, but
so writer on Zodiac.
A Zodiac, interesting.
Zodiac, yeah.
Wow, interesting. But anyway, but to get back to wrapping up of the non-spoiler review, I loved this movie, man. Like radio silence is a force to be reckoned with horror. And it's crazy because my movie watching year this year has been all over the place crazy. I'm loving it. Like this year has been awesome. Because because I mean, I've been doing like 2 reviews a week on the podcast. And so I'm seeing a lot of like mainstream releases, a lot of the big releases and everything. But even I felt like a little bit not fatigued per se with horror, but more like I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, in OV 422, I did a secondary review of Upgraded specifically because I've been doing a lot of horror reviews, like Imaginary, You'll Never Find Me, Monolith, sort of, a bunch of stuff. So it's good that even with me wanting to take somewhat of a break from horror, like a self-imposed break, that this can come out and just completely just pull me in and make me not even think about the other movies.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So yeah, I loved it. I ended up rating it 4 stars on Letterboxd, so it will be in contention for my top 10, but usually my top 10 is usually 4.5 stars. So we'll see how that shakes out with the rest of the year. But man, I love it. I want Radio Silence to continue making interesting, crazy, fun horror movies like this. And we can talk about the bigger implications of this movie and the creation of it in spoilers. But for now, I really loved this movie. I thought it was great.
Yeah, I agree with you. I kind of had a very similar experience. I don't feel the fatigue as much. I'm definitely I am up for a horror buffet, and so I tend to, like, when I watch so much garbage horror, that when you get one that's genuinely good, it's really a treat. And this is one of the genuinely good ones. It was made with care and intention and purpose. I think the directors, the writers, I think the entire cast was excited about making something original, with an asterisk on original.
Right.
And something interesting and something fun. It's made with care, and it's well acted and well performed. I talked earlier about the 2 things that really stuck out to me were the ensemble, which I thought were pretty effective, and then the vampire lore. And I'm really kind of developing this love affair lately with vampires and vampire lore. Renfield and Last Voyage of the Demeter last year were not great movies, but I really loved the vampire lore and the respect to vampire legend. And I recently watched Bram Stoker's Dracula a couple years ago, Brian De Palma a couple weeks ago, excuse me. And I love it. So I'm kind of like checking off boxes, like, okay, this is a vampire movie. Do they do this? Do they do this? And they all, I think, kind of interpret the rules in their own way. And I just kind of loved the way this one interpreted those rules, and then kind of takes what is kind of silly about vampire lore and fun about vampire lore, and really has a lot of fun with it in this, to quote Scream, a third act bloodbath.
Yes.
It was just so much fun and well made. I agree that I don't know that I'll see it on my top 10 list, because I don't think the movie is transcendent. It's not better than some of the other very good horror movies you see in a year. But it's a good time, and I'll definitely watch it again before the end of the year.
Oh, absolutely. This is going to be a great, like, throw it on horror movie when it hits Vudu or even a streaming service.
I think it's a fun double feature with Ready or Not.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, 100%. Oh yeah. So what did you end up rating it on Letterboxd, did you say?
4 stars as well.
4 stars. Nice. So let's go ahead and go into spoilers for Abigail then. So we are coming to the part where we're going to be doing a spoiler review. So if you want to skip the spoiler section and go to the secondary review, check the show notes. Again, the show notes are at obsessiveviewer.com/OV425. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and go into spoilers for Abigail after this clip from the trailer.
Joey?
Yeah?
I'm sorry about what's going to happen to you.
What the fuck?
Shit, we gotta get out of here.
I think she knows something.
Guys.
Guys?
What the fuck is that thing?
We kidnapped a fucking vampire. A ballerina vampire.
Spoilers on for Abigail. Mike, there's a bunch of different things that I want to talk about with this.
Yeah. So I texted,
where do you want to start?
Yeah. During the press for Scream 6, about a year and a half ago, when everybody was so excited to talk about before Scream 6 even came out, they loved to ask Radio Silence, what's next? Are you guys doing Scream 7? Is there a trilogy? And they said, actually, no. Our next project is going to be a monster movie for Universal Studios. And I remember being excited about that and kind of making predictions. I love the Universal monsters. And then kind of just filing it away as like, okay, we'll see later what that is. And so after I watched Abigail the other night, as I do most weeks, I texted Matt after the movie and I said, oh, wait, was Abigail the Universal monster movie that Radio Silence was talking about while they were promoting Scream 6? Because they got away from it a little bit at the end of the movie. So the at the end of the movie reveals that Abigail is hundreds of years old and she is the daughter of a vampire. The movie actually began as a story about Dracula's daughter.
Yes, it was going to be a riff on Dracula's daughter, like the original,
correct, Dracula's daughter. Yeah, and so that it began explicitly as Dracula's daughter, and I think after a while they moved away from it. This isn't speculation. This is I've seen this on Bloody Disgusting. I've seen it on a couple of other websites. So I mean, it is Dracula. I think we can kind of you can proceed as if it is Dracula, right?
They have that. Oh yeah, they have that one line where he's played by Matthew Good. Like that kind of seems like an interesting casting choice. Not that he's like a huge actor or anything, but like for someone who is in the end of the movie with limited screen time, it just seems like that's an interesting choice. I don't know, but he's like, he says the line like, I've gone by many names, like that's kind of interesting. What's really fascinating to me, or maybe not fascinating, but more interesting and makes me happy, is that this is very smartly done. The Universal Monsters connection to it is very smartly done, specifically because it's not like a backdoor pilot for something. It's not like an interconnected multiverse or shared universe thing. Right. Because I don't know if that's something that they were conscious of while writing it, or if that's something that, I don't know if Universal was like, hey, we should do the Universal Monsters thing. Yeah. Because we had success with the Invisible Man. And like, what I really appreciate about this is that it's so open-ended. It's so, like, it can go that route if they decide to do something like that, but it's not, the overall contained movie is not married to that at all. Right. And I think,
and with the 10 million opening weekend.
Yeah. It's not which is a shame, because I would love for them to do like the Universal Monsters proper, like do like actual, like a whole thing. But I don't know if that'll ever happen. But anyway, that's something I found really interesting and really enjoyable about that, is that it is its own self-contained thing. The other thing, have you seen what I think Matt or Tyler, whichever one, I'm on a first name basis with them.
Yeah, your buddies Matt and Ty.
Yeah. One of them said that, I guess someone asked if this is in the Ready or Not universe, and they said, yeah, it is. Have you seen that?
Oh, it sounds familiar.
Well, apparently there's a, in the background in one scene, there is a painting of Henry Sersney. I can't remember how you pronounce his last name. And it's one of the directors said that it would be like his great grandfather or something, but yeah, it's saying that they're in the same universe. Like it's not, that's the thing. So I think that's interesting. Yeah. Plus we're getting a Ready or Not
fun,
2.
I guess.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. So how do you feel about that? Just as an aside before we continue with the review.
I don't know. I trust them because I like them a lot, but file that under movies I didn't think needed a sequel.
Same.
So whatever.
But yeah.
So we talked in our non-spoiler section about that early scene where Joey and Abigail are kind of talking in the room. That was when was there a point where you started to suspect that she was like hundreds of years old?
No, that's actually interesting because I didn't even really consider that. That I did. I think because she played that like innocent child so well, it just didn't even register with me. Like I didn't even think about
because
that.
she's playing it so well, right?
Yep.
But also
Yep.
like, to be such a perfect solo ballerina like that, she's just had a couple hundred years to practice doing that, which I think is so interesting. I thought, when they go into the mansion and you see the statues and it's her with or it's a young girl with the taller shrouded man.
Yeah.
I thought that she was going to be the vampire and the dad was like her familiar or something like that.
Oh, interesting.
And so and the idea was he arranged with Giancarlo Esposito's character to have them come here to feed, which ends up kind of being what it is. But I guess I didn't expect the father to be Dracula, I guess.
Right. Yeah, and I was pretty pleased with that dynamic. I did like how it was kind of revealed that they all had a connection to the crime lord, and like it felt it was very, very like Saw 2 interconnected storylines and stuff. Which that is to say that like there's a subpar version of this movie where we don't get any of the backstory, and that's when we get the backstory. So that's why I appreciate that scene with them with Joey just kind of like figuring them out just by sight alone and everything. Also, it makes for an interesting mirror to Abigail when she does that to them, when she tells them like, oh, this is like you were involved in this and I know this about you and everything.
Yes, very good.
So I really like that kind of interconnected stuff between Abigail and Joey.
It is interesting though that they gave those backstories and Saw-esque versions why they're there, because I got the sense that she brings people there all the time just to eat.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's
clearly we know we know that she does. So that's cool and it's well written. I think that's interesting. But also I don't know, I guess like is every group she brings there connected? You know what I mean?
I would think that they're at least their deaths
who have
are
wronged.
Yeah. If not people who have wronged them, wronged that criminal organization, they're at least people whose death would benefit that criminal organization in some capacity, whether it be competition or what have you.
You're probably right.
Yeah.
You're probably right. If there was one scene or one moment or one turn that knocked maybe a half star off or I did seem critical of, is when Dan Stevens' character turns, he goes full on villain, full on psycho villain. And do you feel like they established that enough? Did you see that coming?
I did. I do think that they established it pretty well, because there were just hints and outright references to him being power hungry, him being wanting to have power in the organization. Like even at the beginning, I mean, like we said in the non-spoiler, I mean, he's patterned after like his wardrobe.
Yeah,
is
that's
patterned
true.
after,
He used to be a
you know,
shithead.
he used to be a piece of shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, and also with the backstory being about him being a corrupt cop who is now working as a professional, like criminal, like that.
Yeah.
It's painting it like, and he also has this energy of like take charge and dickheadedness.
Yeah.
Which I think Dan Stevens does incredibly well in this movie. Like his performance is fantastic. But did you think when they took Abigail at the beginning that they were setting up him, like his injury? I thought it was like, oh, this is how they're going to find out she's a vampire because he got bitten on the hand. But I don't think he was. There was probably something else that.
No, she stabs him with a pencil.
Oh, okay. I missed that. Okay.
Yeah, I kind of
Okay.
said that. I saw the Band-Aid there later, and I was like, oh, wait. I'm like, oh, okay. That was a pencil. That was the pencil we saw earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
But they do. There is a bite and a turn. Kathryn Newton, and I loved it.
Oh, me too.
I loved every moment of the mind control and puppetry. That is like playing with the lore that I was talking about.
Nice.
You know, Abigail talks about you have to practice all the cool stuff that vampires can do or whatever.
Dude, I fucking loved that line.
Yeah.
So
that's
good.
funny, and that's kind of like, you know, she's 100 and something, hundreds of years old, but she's also perpetually a 12-year-old. That's the way a 12-year-old would think of,
yes,
you know, being a vampire is learning the cool stuff or whatever. And so it's cool that she has that power and you know, is able to again seduce, I think is the vampire
influence
there. Right.
What'd you think of the choreography and everything? Because like with the ballet stuff, like I feel like that was not overused at all. Like this whole movie top to bottom is paced incredibly well, and the change ups in the plot, the different things that happen at different intervals, like those work so well because it's structured so well. So that's what I think about it. How'd you feel about the choreography and the more crazy violence? And we have a new viewer in the chat. We are in spoilers for Abigail, so go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I loved all of it. I thought her using ballerina kung fu is again it all came off as like practiced. Like she's been doing this, not just that she has these super strength powers and can fly and whatever. She also has just been doing this for a long time. I also didn't feel like you know, I think the easy comparison was that it looked like Megan, right? This young girl, evil girl who also does a dance. Yeah, I just even feel gross saying that, but I mean that's what Megan was.
Yeah.
And, it's not. Abigail doesn't rely on that. It's really not that. It's not a ballerina vampire movie,
right?
You know what I mean? Whereas Megan like is what it is.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And Abigail, I feel like is more.
Oh, 100%. And the kind of we can get kind of in the final act of the movie, that turn with Dan Stevens. I do. What I find interesting is like turning things around, having like Kathryn Newton and Dan Stevens characters both being like kind of alternate villains in a sense. That's so like that's very smartly written because we need that from the movie, but also also when the main crux of like the emotion of the movie is Joey and her son and her forming this like bond with Abigail, like that's such a narrow, like a small needle to thread in this, and I think they did it incredibly well.
I think so too.
Yeah, it was because like she's still violent. Like Abigail's still violent. She's still a threat. She's still scary. But that bond between her and Joey is really strong, and I like that. And in light of like turning like Kathryn Newton and Dan Stevens as bigger villains in a sense.
Right.
Well, I mean, Kathryn Newton was controlled by her.
Yeah,
so,
Kathryn Newton,
yeah.
not so much, but you have
Yeah.
to have in a vampire movie, it becomes a thing where your main characters are dealing with their friends turning into vampires. I mean, that's part of the lore that is that's stock, that's stereotype. You have to do that. You expect it, you want it.
Yeah, absolutely.
The gore that we were talking about in the
oh my god, yes
is when they're touched by sunlight, instead of like burning or melting, they just explode.
They do the Ready or Not thing. They just explode.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's just so awesome. And I feel like I've seen that before. I've seen that in I want to it's been so long since I've seen True Blood, and I only saw like a season or two of it, but I feel like that's the type of sunlight thing that happens in that.
Gotcha.
But this was just like the bloodbath aspect of it, like literal bloodbath, like just like that's the other thing with Ready or Not in this. It's just like having the final girl being just covered in blood at the end of the movie is just so like it's so much fun. I don't know, it's really cool.
Yeah, it's the escape through the birth canal. It's coming out the other side, reborn.
Yep.
Covered in viscera.
Yep. And I also had vibes of The Descent at the end when she's in the car.
I mean, talk about coming out of birth canal. Yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely.
Yep. Just really, really great stuff. I'm thinking I can't wait to do like a double feature of this and Ready or Not now.
Yeah, for sure.
So good.
Crossing the felt ropes, watching from home on my TV, looking at all my eyes can see. They tell me I view obsessively.